Have you ever imagined a battlefield where tanks disappear as if they melt into the air, undetectable by the human eye or modern sensors? Sounds like science fiction, right? But right now, in the shattered fields of Ukraine, Sweden has turned the impossible into reality. Their CV-90 tanks, equipped with the Barracuda mobile camouflage system, are rewriting the rules of modern warfare. These aren't just machines, they are ghosts on the battlefield, gliding past enemy lines and attacking when the foe is unaware. How did Sweden achieve this miracle? And what does it mean for the war in Ukraine? Let's dive into a story of innovation, survival, and the relentless race for an edge in a war where every second counts. Imagine eastern Ukraine in 2023, a land riddled with trenches, scattered tank wrecks, and the incessant buzz of drones. The Russian forces, overwhelming in number and artillery, seem unstoppable. The Ukrainian army, though resilient, is stretched thin, their Soviet-era tanks struggling to counter the modern threat. Amidst this life or death struggle, Sweden steps in, not with sheer numbers, but with a game-changing weapon. The CV-90, a lightweight and highly mobile infantry fighting vehicle that has been the backbone of the Swedish army since the 1990s. This is not just any tank. With a 40mm autocannon capable of penetrating armour, a top speed of 70 km per hour, and armour capable of withstanding 30mm rounds, the CV-90 is a hunter designed to be fast and accurate. But what truly sets it apart is the Barracuda system, an advanced camouflage technology that makes the vehicle almost invisible. Now, let's set the scene. June 2023, Ukraine's 21st Mechanized Brigade prepares for a daring nighttime raid deep into Russian-held territory. The mission is risky. Destroy the supply lines fueling the Russian front. Colonel Andriy, the brigade commander, knows they are facing a formidable threat. Russian drones circle the skies, infrared sensors penetrate the darkness, and radar scans for any movement. One small mistake could wipe out the entire unit. But Andriy has an ace up his sleeve. 50 CV-90s provided by Sweden, each wrapped in the Barracuda camouflage. As the soldiers climb into their vehicles, Andriy is taken aback by these machines. They don't just blend into the trees, they seem to vanish, their outlines broken up by the textured Barracuda fabric. Even the heat signature is neutralized, blending with the cold night air. This, he thinks, could change everything. To understand why this is so important, let's look back at the essence of camouflage. The idea isn't new. Nature has been doing it for millions of years. Think of a chameleon changing colour, or the spots on a leopard that make it disappear in the grass. Humans, being skilled imitators, have learned these tricks. In the 19th century, Portuguese soldiers wore earth-coloured uniforms to blend into the Iberian desert. By World War I, warships were painted in distracting patterns to fool enemy gunners. But the scientific foundation of camouflage came from zoologist Abbot Thayer. In 1896, he published a book on disruptive coloration, patterns that not only hide but also distort the shape of an object. His idea was revolutionary, and armies quickly began covering tanks and soldiers with jagged, contrasting patterns. For decades, camouflage worked like magic. A tank painted in green and brown could vanish into the forest, invisible to sniper eyes. But then technology changed the game. Infrared cameras, radar, and electromagnetic sensors made traditional camouflage obsolete. A tank might look like foliage to the human eye, but with thermal sensors, it would glow like a furnace. By the 21st century, hiding a tank was like trying to conceal a fire in a dark room. But Sweden refused to give up. Saab, the aerospace giant, developed the Barracuda system. This is not just paint or a net thrown over a vehicle. It is a high-tech shield woven from materials that absorb radar waves, scatter infrared light, and even reflect ultraviolet rays to mimic snow. This is camouflage for the digital age, designed to deceive both human eyes and machines. Back to Colonel Andriy and his brigade. As night falls, the CV-90s roll forward, their rubber tracks barely making a sound on the ground. Unlike the noisy metal tracks of older tanks, these are quiet, reducing vibrations that could be detected by seismic sensors. The Barracuda fabric hugs each vehicle, perfectly tailored to avoid catching on branches or flying in the wind. Andriy peers through his night vision goggles, waiting for the faint glow of a thermal signal from a tank. But there's nothing, just the cold, dark forest. Barracuda's thermal masking feature is working, making the CV-90s blend seamlessly into the environment. It feels strange, almost supernatural. His radio crackles with a report: Russian drones are overhead, but they pass by unaware. For the first time, Andriy feels a flicker of hope. This moment is the culmination of decades of innovation, but it also proves Sweden's foresight. The CV-90 was designed with a low radar signature, and its electronics are protected against jamming. Combined with Barracuda, it becomes a stealth platform that can operate where others can't. In Ukraine, where drones have turned the battlefield into a glass cage, this stealth ability is a lifesaver. Russian suicide drones, equipped with anti-tank mines, are a nightmare, sneaking through defences to make precise attacks. But the CV-90's electronic warfare suite, which includes radio jammers, disrupts drone signals, while Barracuda makes the vehicles nearly undetectable. It's a double punch that has proven its worth. As Andriy's brigade nears a Russian supply depot, the tension is palpable. The CV-90s fan out, their 40mm autocannons ready. These guns are no joke. They can rip apart old tanks like the T-72, which make up the bulk of Russia's arsenal. The plan is simple: strike hard, destroy the fuel and munitions storage, and retreat before Russia can react. But there's a problem. Intelligence reports say the depot is guarded by a company of T-90s, Russia's most advanced tank. In theory, they are a match for anything Ukraine has. Andriy knows his CV-90s are weaker in a direct fight, but he's betting on stealth and speed. Will Barracuda's miracle hold up under fire? When the first shots ring out, the fate of this mission and perhaps the war hangs in the balance. The raid begins and the night erupts into chaos. Colonel Andriy's CV-90s glide through the forest, the Barracuda camouflage allowing them to slip past Russian guards like ghosts. Ahead lies the supply depot, a vast maze of fuel trucks and ammunition crates, dimly lit by the sentry posts. Andriy's heart pounds as he gives the order to attack. The CV-90's 40mm autocannon roars to life, tearing apart the unarmoured vehicles and sending towering flames into the sky. The Russians are caught off guard, disoriented as they scramble to respond. But then the T-90s roll in, their 125mm guns swiveling to lock onto a target. This is the moment of truth for the Barracuda system. If it fails, Andriy's brigade could be wiped out. The CV-90s don't stop to engage. They move, darting between cover, their low profile and neutralized signals, making them hard to track. The Barracuda fabric does its job, scattering radar waves and concealing heat signatures. The Russian gunners, relying on infrared scopes, only see faint thermal glows, indistinguishable from the burning debris around them. One T-90 fires blindly, its shell tearing through a tree but missing the target. Olena, Andriy's young gunner, locks onto a T-90 through the thermal sight. The CV-90's dual vision system, commander and gunner working independently, gives her the advantage. She fires a burst of 40mm rounds targeting the T-90's optics and tracks. The tank halts, blinded and immobile. It's not destroyed, but it's rendered ineffective. This skirmish encapsulates Ukraine's strategy: strike quickly, remain hidden, and exploit Russia's weaknesses. The CV-90 wasn't designed to face off with main battle tanks, but its mobility and stealth give it an edge beyond its weight. As the raid continues, Andriy's brigade destroys half of the Russian supply depot before withdrawing, sending Russia into disarray. By dawn, they return to their lines with minimal casualties. The mission is a success, but not without cost. Olena, shaken by the near-death experience, confides in Andriy about her fear of losing comrades. He listens, knowing every victory comes at a human cost. This war is not just about technology, it's about resilience. Let's take a step back to understand why this raid matters. The Russian military relies on numbers, thousands of tanks, relentless artillery, and a willingness to take heavy losses. But cracks are starting to show. Satellite imagery reveals empty tank depots, with estimates suggesting Russia has only about 3,000 tanks left, mostly outdated T-72s and T-80s. The T-14 Armata, once hailed as a game changer, has failed, with only 14 delivered and unable to stand their ground in combat. Meanwhile, Ukraine is using a mix of Western modernized platforms, M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, and now the CV-90. These platforms, combined with NATO-provided drones and missiles, are shifting the balance. The Barracuda system is an amplifying factor, but its potential goes far beyond the CV-90. Saab claims it can be adapted for any vehicle, from missile launchers to troop carriers. Imagine Ukraine's long-range rocket systems like HIMARS draped in Barracuda fabric, moving toward Russian lines undetected, or air defense units hiding just ahead of the enemy, ambushing Russian helicopters. This flexibility could reshape Ukraine's tactics, allowing them to strike deeper and more unpredictably. For Andriy, it's a beacon of hope in an intense, ongoing war. But he knows Russia won't stand still. They're adapting, deploying more drones, and relying on allies like North Korea to supply artillery. The question is whether Ukraine can expand its stealth advantage before Russia figures out how to counter it. Back at base, Andriy meets with his superiors to report. The success of the raid has boosted morale, but it also highlights growing tensions. Some officers argue that the CV-90s need to be preserved, fearing the loss of these vehicles to Russian anti-tank missiles. Others, including Andriy, push for bolder operations, believing that the Barracuda's stealth provides a unique opportunity to cripple Russia's logistics. The debate is heated, reflecting the pressure of a war with no end in sight. Andriy thinks of Olena and her team, who have placed their lives in his hands. He's not just fighting for territory, he's fighting for the people who believe in him. As winter approaches, the stakes are higher. Russia's fuel shortage, caused by Ukraine's attacks on refineries, could cripple their artillery. But if Ukraine pushes too hard, they risk losing precious CV-9s. What will Andriy choose? And can Barracuda help them weather the coming storm? Winter descends on Ukraine, turning the battlefield into a frozen hell. Snow blankets the ground, muffling sound, but amplifying the light from thermal signals. Colonel Andriy's 21st Mechanized Brigade is on the move again, this time to secure a key highway intersection. The Russian forces, desperate to regain the initiative, are gearing up for a counter-offensive. Andriy's CV-90s, still wrapped in their Barracuda camouflage, are Ukraine's best hope of stopping them. The UV-reflective properties of the system make the vehicles blend into the snow, while its heat-masking ability keeps them hidden from Russian drones. But this mission will test both the limits of Swedish technology and Andriy's leadership. The battle begins at dusk, with Russian T-80s and infantry advancing under the cover of artillery support. Andriy's CV-90s take up ambush positions, their jammers disrupting the feed from Russian drones. The Barracuda fabric, now adjusted to a snow pattern, renders them nearly invisible against the frozen terrain. Olena, now more confident, orders her gunners to target the weak spots behind the armor of a T-80. The 40mm autocannon roars and the tank erupts in flames. Across the battlefield, the CV-90s strike and retreat, their speed and stealth sowing chaos. The Russian mechanized units, already stretched thin with only 3 vehicles per team, disband as the CV-90s neutralize their main battle tanks, rendering the entire unit ineffective. This is the pinnacle of the CV-90's impact. In January 2024, the 21st Brigade reported the destruction of 40 Russian tanks and armoured vehicles, proving the power of the vehicle and the advantage of Barracuda. But victory comes at a cost. One CV-90 is hit by a Russian anti-tank missile, but the crew narrowly escapes. Andriy visits the wounded, grappling with the loss. Olena, now the pillar of the team, urges him to keep going. "We're hurting them," she says. "They can't keep up." Her words bolster his resolve, but doubt still lingers. Russian manpower may be dwindling, but their artillery still pounds Ukrainian positions, and the fuel shortages haven't completely paralysed them. The bigger picture is both grim and hopeful. Ukraine's attacks on Russian oil refineries have forced Moscow to halt fuel exports, stressing their economy. Without fuel, Russia's artillery, the backbone of their strategy, could be stalled. The CV-90, along with Abrams and Bradley tanks, is proving superior to Russia's ageing fleet. The T-14 Armata, once touted as unbeatable, has proven vulnerable to drones and Western firepower. However, Russia's sheer numbers remain a threat, and their reliance on North Korean artillery shells signals their readiness for a long war. For Ukraine, Barracuda provides a chance to shift the balance, but it's not a silver bullet. Scaling production and adapting it to more vehicles will take time that Ukraine may not have. Andriy reflects on the journey. The CV-90s have brought moments of victory, but the war has taught him that technology alone cannot win battles. It's the courage of soldiers like Alina, the trust between comrades, and unyielding willpower that matter most. The Barracuda system, while outstanding, is just a tool. A great tool, but still just a tool. As he plans the next campaign, Andriy knows the road ahead is perilous. The winter will test the brigade's endurance, and Russia's desperation could bring new horrors. But he has learned the core truth. Stealth is not just about hiding, it's about choosing when to strike and when to endure. This story is not just about tanks or camouflage, it's about the human spirit in the face of brutal challenges. Ukraine's fight, bolstered by innovations like Barracuda, shows what can happen when creativity meets determination. For us, the observers from afar, it's a lesson. No challenge is too great if we face it together with courage and wisdom. So what do you take away from this? How do you find strength in your own battles? Share your thoughts and let's continue this conversation. For now, Andriy and his brigade march on, invisible but resolute, in a war with no end in sight.